Good morning, and thank you for coming out today to hear about our package of bills, the Economic Equity and Financial Stability Initiative. These are Senate Bills 308, Senate Bill 501, and Senate Bill 641, and they're all designed to help low-income Californians. Now, this legislature is taking action to address the growing gap in our society caused by income inequality. This legislature has approved a minimum wage increases, and this legislature has passed the Earned Income Tax Credit. Today, we stand together in support of a bill package that will bring further aid to low and middle income Californians. Now, these three bills take another approach to fighting income inequality. All three tackle consumer debt, which is crushing many people in our state and in our nation. Consumer debt has reached an all-time high in June of 2015, $3.4 trillion with a T, and it's a huge barrier for breaking this cycle of poverty. Now, many of you know I'm a practicing bankruptcy attorney, and I've seen the devastating effect debt can have to families and how difficult it is for average Californians to overcome the burden of too much consumer debt. Now, one problem that's addressed by Senate Bill 308 is that in California, our bankruptcy laws simply haven't kept pace with the times. They're outdated. They fail to provide a true fresh start for families in need. So Senate Bill 308 makes it less likely that a senior will have their home forcibly sold in order to pay an unsecured debt. In short, some of the seniors in California on fixed incomes who spent a lifetime paying down their mortgages are going to be able to remain in their homes. By allowing people who have mirrored in bankruptcy to keep more of their belongings, Senate Bill 308 sets a more realistic scenario for them to get some breathing room in order to stabilize their finances. Now, Senate Bill 501 protects low-income workers by replacing the current 25% wage garnishment rate with a tiered rate that says the less you make, the more money in your paycheck you get to keep. People are living paycheck to paycheck, and they're never going to be able to feed their families and their children if we keep taking 25% of their take-home pay. Senate Bill 501 doesn't make the debt go away, but it does help level the playing field and allows workers near the minimum wage to retain those earnings. It also respects the local minimum wage laws that are being passed in our different cities. And finally, the third bill, Senate Bill 641, cracks down on some of the abusive tactics of debt buyers who often pursue payment from people who never owed the debt or have already paid off the debt. Now, attorney generals across the nation, including our Attorney General, Kamala Harris, who supports this package of the three bills, has filed lawsuits against banks and debt collection companies who have harassed people. They've done some robo-signed documents and gone after some people who never owed the debt. Now, for 22 consecutive months, the tactics and abuses of the debt collectors have been the #1 consumer complaint with the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And their #1 complaint? Quite simply, companies are going after people who do not owe the debt. Now, just last month, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau issued a monthly report highlighting debt collection companies. It found that in 2014, between February and April, Encore Capital had more than twice as many complaints than the next closest egregious company. In 2015, Encore's performance has changed little. It's time that we balance the scales of justice and give California consumers their day in court. SB 641 will save consumers money by allowing them to go in and ask a court to set aside the default judgment and allow the case to be tried on its merits. Now, I'm proud to let everybody know that Senate Bill 308, the bankruptcy exemption bill, is set for hearing tomorrow in the Senate Appropriations bill. I have several advocates that are with us today. First, I'd like to introduce a gentleman that really doesn't need an introduction, but he's a strong supporter of trying to change the income inequality that goes on. I mean, many people come up here, they get elected, they want to talk, that they're for income inequality. Senate President Pro Tem Kevin De Leon walks the walk. He's my friend. He's here to say a few kind words about the bills. President De Leon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Good morning to each and every one of you, and thank you so very much, Senator Wieckowski, for that wonderful introduction. I'm very proud to stand in support of Senator Bob Wieckowski's very important package of legislative bills that deal with debt collection and deal with the issue of income inequality and poverty in the state of California. Now, as we all know, California has come a very long way in its recovery from the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, since 1929. In fact, we are today the 8th largest economy in the entire world. That's quite a feat, again, coming from the worst economic recession since 1929. But the reality is also there are so many pockets of deep entrenched poverty throughout the state. There are so many pockets of folks who quite today have not felt the economic positive resurgence of being the 8th largest economy in the world. And that's why I'm so proud to be here with Senator Wieckowski, as well as the advocates and representatives for Attorney General Kamala Harris to move forward this package of bills. Our economy, again, is growing again. Unemployment is down, and we have a streak of consecutive balanced budgets for the first time in recent memories. But again, too many Californians are being left out of our positive economic resurgence. Income inequality is real, and there's no place in the country where it is starker than here in the state of California. Our state is home to the congressional districts with both the highest as well as lowest human developmental index ratings in the United States. In Silicon Valley, specifically, being the highest, and San Joaquin Valley, respectively, being the lowest. This legislative package is intended to provide financial stability for California families still struggling to make ends meet. Senate Bills 308, 501, and 641 provide a way to help put our working families and individuals on much solid financial footing without an influx of state funding. I really commend Senator Wieckowski for his leadership. I remember from day one when we began our legislative session for 2015-16 that he came to me and he spoke about these legislative measures and the issue that he wanted to tackle with regards to income inequality. And obviously, through his deep experience as being a lawyer, a bankruptcy lawyer, he has seen the faces of so many families, of so many working families, so many single mothers with children who suffer greatly and who compound their poverty even more so because of the debt that they struggle that oftentimes just consumes them, and it becomes a vicious cycle of poverty that they can never get out of. That's why these bills are in fact a lifeline to give financial footing, stability. Again, as Senator Wieckowski just underscored, it doesn't erase debt, but it gives you the ability to breathe. It gives you an ability to get a more solid financial footing underneath yourself so that you can deal with the debt and at the same time you can actually take care of your family and raise your children with the modicum of dignity and respect. So again, I really commend Senator Wieckowski for his amazing leadership on these measures. That's why I'm here today, to work with him to make sure that we can get these measures passed, we can get them to the governor's desk, and he can sign them into law. Again, thank you very much, Senator Wieckowski. Thank you very much. Thank you. Unas palabras muy breves en español. Nomás quisiera darle las gracias a mi compañero, mi colega del Senado, el senador Bob Wieckowski, por su empeño, por su liderazgo sobre este paquete de medidas legislativas, enfocándose en un tema muy importante. Aunque es un tema polarizante de vez en cuando, no, es un tema muy importante para nosotros como familias trabajadoras, el tema de desigualdad que existe en el estado de California. Somos la 8ª potencia mundial. Eso quiere decir que solo hay 7 países más poderosos económicamente que el estado de California. Pero sin embargo, hay muchas familias trabajadoras, madres solteras a lo largo y ancho del estado de California que siguen viviendo en pobreza. Este paquete de medidas por mi amigo, por mi colega, el senador Wieckowski, es un paquete para ayudar a aliviar las deudas que existen hoy día, que hoy día las familias trabajadoras están sofocando de tanta deuda que tienen que pagar mensualmente porque no queda suficiente en el bolsillo para pagar el techo, agua, luz, la comida, la ropa para los hijos. No es una medida para borrar deudas, sino es una medida proactiva para ayudar a las familias trabajadoras aquí en el estado de California. Y por eso quiero reconocer y darles las gracias a un gran líder que se está enfocando en este tema de desigualdad aquí en el estado de California, el senador Bob Wieckowski. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ted Merman. He's with the East Bay Community Law Center. He's been an advocate speaking with senators and assembly members throughout the legislative process. Please give a warm welcome to Ted Merman.
Thank you, my friends. No one should be able to force you to pay a debt that you don't owe. Senator Wieckowski said, my name is Ted Merman. I teach consumer law at the UC Berkeley Law School. I am pro bono counsel at the East Bay Community Law Center, a legal aid provider in Oakland and in Berkeley. SB 641 is a simple fix for a simple injustice. It will open the doors of justice to people in need. If a debt buyer is taking your wages or emptying your bank account to pay a debt that you don't owe, you should be able to go into court to straighten things out. Right now, even if a debt buyer, that's a particular breed of debt collector that pays pennies on the dollar for questionable or hard to collect debts, even if a debt buyer is taking money from the wrong person, you only have 2 years after they've got their judgment to get into court, even if you've never heard there was a lawsuit against you. After that, unless you can pay for your own lawyer, and low-income and even middle-income Californians can't do that, you are out of luck. The courtroom doors are closed. This bill, SB 641, will change that. It says that if you don't owe the debt that a debt buyer says you owe, you have 6 years to get into court to contest the case. And if they have the wrong person completely, then there's no time limit. That just makes sense. If you didn't borrow the money, why should it matter how much time has passed? You shouldn't have to pay a debt you do not owe. What SB 641 says is that if you are that consumer, you get a chance to go into court and tell your story. That's it. But opening the doors of justice will help people who desperately need that help. It will help Sharon, a single mother who works at the Port of Oakland, driving a truck. It will keep her from falling off a financial cliff. One day she noticed that her bank account had been garnished for a debt she'd never heard of. That process stopped. A few months later, she noticed that her wages had been garnished, 25%, because SB 501 isn't in effect yet. Fortunately, she found a legal aid lawyer at EBCLC. But what happens to the thousands of people who don't have a lawyer? What happens to Jorge, a grandfather in LA, a victim of identity theft, whose wages were garnished for a default judgment, one of 39 accounts that were opened in his name entirely fraudulently? He filed a police report. He still can't find a lawyer. His wages are still being garnished. And now that more than 2 years have passed, he can't get into court to file a simple motion. So it's sort of no-go for Jorge. The doors of justice are closed to him unless and until SB 641 passes this legislature and is signed by the governor. We need this bill. There are people hurting out there. As people in this state know, and as we've heard today, it's hard enough to pay the debts you do owe. This bill will bring a little more justice and make the lives of working Californians a little bit easier. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted. Now our next speaker is Jessica Bartholow, who is with the Western Center on Law and Poverty and has been working tirelessly on this package of bills. Jessica.
Thank you, Senator Wieckowski and members of the public. Jessica Bartholow with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. We became involved with the legislative package introduced by Senator Wieckowski because we see in our public legal services centers throughout the state more and more people who are working but poor and consumed by consumer debt. I always say, you know, I grew up poor myself, and from that, I do the work here at Western Center on Law and Poverty at the Capitol. And I always say that you can't leave poverty without going into debt. The debt that we see people coming into our office with is medical debt. Even though we have healthcare reform, people still have debt from before it was passed. People have credit card debt because they bought groceries or backpacks for their kids for school. Basic necessities on their credit cards because their wages didn't go far enough, or they lost their jobs, and they were trying to hold on to what little they had. When they come into our offices, sometimes the length of time that it takes to get relief is too long, and they become evicted. We can help them with the eviction, but we can't help them with a lifetime of debt that they can't pay back. So what SB 501 does is it helps to reduce the amount that working poor can be garnished to less than 25%. The current law in California is 25%, and that's a federal maximum. And we know here in California the cost of living is higher than most other states. And maybe you don't know that in California we have more people who are working and poor than any other state in the country. More people, more children living in poverty. And in fact, according to the Public Policy Institute of California, almost 80% of poor Californians are living in a working home. So SB 501 helps protect the wages that they bring home so that they can pay for their rent, prevent hunger among their children, and stay employed. What good does it do to have a 25% garnishment on your wages if it prevents you from being able to afford a bus pass to get to work? It doesn't help you, it doesn't help your family, and it doesn't help you pay off debt any faster. The other thing that SB 501 does is it ramps up the rate at which you pay the debt, and it doesn't start until you're working at the local minimum wage. Current law says that the wage garnishment can start at the state minimum wage, but throughout the state of California, led by very courageous workers who are low income and foregoing their basic needs, these local minimum wages have increased. And the wage garnishment shouldn't start until you're earning the local minimum wage. And that's what SB 501 does. It recognizes the efforts and votes of local governments and local constituents to increase the minimum wage in their regions and establishes the wage garnishment at that rate. So Western Center on Law and Poverty is proud to be a sponsor of that bill and support this entire bill package to help families who are low income and impacted by the long arm of the recession to get back on their feet, to provide for their family, and to remain employed. ¿Puedo tratar de hablar en español un poquito? Okay. Okay. Entonces, el Centro de Pobreza y la ley aquí en California, yo trabajo allí, me llamo Jessica Bartolo, y nosotros estamos en apoyo de esta legislación porque va a ayudar a la gente que están trabajando muy duro para proveer para su familia, para pagar la renta, los zapatos para los niños, la comida para su familia, y porque tienen deudas que no pueden pagar, no están protegiendo de los colectores de la deuda. Entonces, esta legislación va a ayudar a estas familias en mantener más de su sueldo para pagar las necesidades básicas para su familia. Y por eso nosotros estamos muy orgullosos para apoyarlos. Está bien. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up for questions now, but let me reiterate that some attorneys general have settled a lawsuit that they had with large banks and the debt collectors on the default judgment. Our Attorney General, Kamala Harris, continues to pursue that in order to better protect California consumers and get a better resolution on the lawsuit. So we're happy to have her supporting all three of these bills. And if there's questions by anybody, let's start. Or you can ask them. All right. I'll make myself available, as will the advocates, for people to have one-on-one questions. And thank you very much for your attention.